Hi everybody, welcome to the second week, Module 2 of PHA 5110 Pharmacogenetics. So this week we are going over PGX refresher, PGX databases, and PGX panels. And so this is going to consist of two parts of the main lecture which you have actually already received in your past course with me. So I did this on purpose because this week entails a lot of work. So most of these lectures are going to be refreshers for you. There's going to be additional videos I post on here that won't be as long as a full lecture that's going to go over pharmacogenetic or PGX panels as well, so keep an eye out for those. And then this week there is a database activity. Okay, so you have to do a database activity, which you can see here is downloadable and you can read through the instructions. This is fairly straightforward and self-explanatory. Essentially, there's two different parts to it. One where we'll go over something called phenolthiocarbamide, which I usually do in person in class, where you can actually taste these strips, and some people taste bitter and some people don't. However, because we're in a remote environment, we don't get to do it in person, but you can still get the overall learning objectives that I want you to get. And then I want you to go ahead and look up something using the databases that I've given you to give me information about a gene that you know nothing about. So that's the point of this second part of this activity, is to get used to looking through the databases to find which ones are your favorite, are the easiest to use, so that when you do the SOAP notes that come up later in a few sessions, you'll be ready to go. And additionally, this database activity is going to use this genetic profile here. Here's the MB genetic profile. So if we go back into it, we can see that there's a third part to this activity where you're going to determine what's called star allele. So this is usually, traditionally, it's kind of a confusing concept for students because it's very abstract. It's not something that you've learned about. It's not something we really encounter often prior or during pharmacy school, but it's actually a really important concept in pharmacogenetics. So that's the point of this part 3. You're going to use that MB genetic profile to figure out what that person's star genotype is. And my hope is that if you go back to those specific sections in the lecture videos and review them before you do this with your partner, you'll be able to better understand what is a star allele and how it's made up from genetic variants within a specific gene. Then there are a few other assignments because this week we don't have a quiz. So there's 2 assignments that you have to work on here. Actually 3 in total, but 2 of them are longitudinal over the course. First, there's the writing assignment here. So the writing assignment is self-explanatory. It has a specific due date of May 31st. So just keep that in mind. Essentially the point is I want you to read 5 which are fairly short papers, but they have to do with pharmacy, pharmacists, and pharmacogenetics. And so I like to do this because it helps students understand not only that we've been talking about this for years now with an old paper with 2003, but it's still coming up with papers from 2015, 2018 on what is the role for a pharmacist in pharmacogenetics. So I think it's a really important topic that we all need to learn and at least be cognizant of, so that when you go into practice out in the future, even if it's 20 years from now, you will probably encounter pharmacogenetics, and I think it will become a common tool that pharmacists are expected to know. Then additionally, there is the oral presentation, which is kind of, again, the capstone of the course that I explained in the introduction to this course. And the instructions here are here on how to pick a paper that you're going to present on. So specifically, if you look into those instructions, they have to be a primary research article. It cannot be systematic reviews. It cannot be some sort of just topic review. It has to be some sort of actual study. It can be human, it can be preclinical, but it has to be some primary research that you're going to present to the other students. Additionally, there's information in there on how to design your presentation, how long it needs to be, and an entire presentation rubric that I grade on. So again, these have specific due dates that occur at the end of the semester, And here's the rubric. I don't think the due dates are on this. Let's go back. There's the rubric. Here we go. So critical deadlines. Deadline for sending me your paper for approval, because I must approve it, because I've found year after year students still send me a review paper, or sometimes it's an original research paper that I might say, this one might be difficult to present on, or some student has already given me that article and you can't have two people present on the same article. So how you look up these papers, I would suggest you go to PubMed or whatever database you want to look in, and then look up pharmacogenetic with your topic that really interests you, whether it be cancer or cardiovascular or whatever interests you, and try to find a nice primary research article that looks at pharmacogenetics in humans or preclinical. Humans are probably more interesting and applicable to your training here as clinical pharmacists. And then send me that paper, and then I'll approve it if appropriate. Also, your deadline for uploading your presentation is specifically here. The reason I wanted you to upload your presentation is because I just want to make sure I have them all in case there's issues with sharing screens, and I can share my screen since, again, we're in this remote environment. I need you all to upload your presentation slides prior to the first presentation session. Okay. And then, so these are the two longitudinal assignments that have due dates beyond next week. But for next week prior to class, you actually have another assignment, which again, that's why we don't have a lot of lecture this week, because there's a lot of work to do. When you have 4 hours of class on one session a week, it adds up pretty quickly. So next week, at the beginning of class, is going to be due a mini group presentation. And so I know it's a little bit cut off here, but you can still get the point. So what next class is going to be is teaching each other about genotyping technologies. So we're going to go over 6 different genotyping technologies that's going to be assigned to each group. Essentially, Canvas, again, has assigned you to your groups. These instructions specifically give you how you're going to create those lectures, so they can be however you want, but I suggest you just do the PowerPoint method where you can record the audio in the slides. That way you can break it up amongst your group members, you can combine them into a single file at the end and then upload them. But if you want to do it another way, totally fine. It gives you an overview of what you need to include in your presentation. Again, these are slow or small, short presentations, so it's cut off here, but it says 8 to 10 minutes max. So really short, really quick, to the point. And so the overall goal here is that you all will create your presentations. You will upload them by the beginning of next class next week, where I will turn them around and create discussion threads where you guys can view the lectures. You can post questions to each thread for each presentation, and then by the following week you answer each of those questions posted by each group member or group. So a couple requirements here is that each non-presenting group must post 1 question per presentation, so for all the other topics, and you have to split that up amongst your group members. It can't just be one group member going into each presentation and posting a question. You have to break it up. So each group member needs to post at least 1 question, and likewise each group member needs to post replies for the questions. Additionally, they need to be thoughtful questions, so this applies to the oral presentation as well. They cannot be something like, what is the biggest limitation of this technology? It has to be something thoughtful. It has to be something where you could ask a question about comparing different technologies. You could ask in-depth questions about, do you think this technology is conducive to broad-scale genotyping? It just has to be something more thoughtful than the general questions that I've seen over the years, where students just basically ask what their favorite part is about a technology, or for the oral presentation at the end of the class, what their favorite part of the paper was. It needs to be a little deeper than that. So let's try to think of some good questions to post so that we can have at least some thoughtful discussion regarding these technologies. So again, all the information you need is in this assignment. If you have questions, shoot me emails. I'll make sure I'll post answers to the whole class so that we're all on the same playing field. So take a look at these critical due dates on when you need to upload your presentations, when you need to post your questions to the discussion threads that I'll create, when you got to complete the quiz that I create based on these presentations, and so on and so forth. So that makes basically all the things that we have to do for this week and the next week for modules 2 and 3. So again, it's going to be reviewing some lectures that you've already watched with some new ones that I'll post on pharmacogenetic panels, a partner activity, and then a writing assignment and oral presentation, which are on your own, and then genotyping technology mini presentations, which is in a group. So again, have any questions, shoot me an email. I'll be keeping my eye out for it. Thanks.